Welcome back to Photoshop for photographers, and today we're going to go over how to add text to your images inside of Photoshop. Now, text can actually be very beneficial, especially when you're starting out. It can allow you to create your own logo. It can allow you to create your own website. You can add text to images to promote yourself. You can make your own cards. There's a whole variety of options in which text is going to be beneficial to you as a photographer. The text tool is right down here, and this is the horizontal type text tool. Below it, we have the vertical, two masking options. Now, we're not going to go into these three because truthfully, you're most likely not going to use them at this point. We're just going to stick with the horizontal type tool. And we're going to come in here. The first way to do text or type is really easily. We have this little tool here. Up here are our fonts and our size, and this is our color. We're just going to go ahead and click once. And it's going to allow us to come in here and add some type. The second way, we're just going to go ahead and apply that, is to click on the type tool again. And this one, we're going to select a box. So I'm going to click, hold, and drag. And this is going to make a text box. This is going to allow us to put text inside of a box. It's not going to go outside of the box. It's going to have text inside of the box. And we're just going to hit escape and get rid of that. And you can see down here when I did the first one or the second, or each time that you add text, it's going to go ahead and create a layer. And this layer is going to have this big T on it. And whatever you write here is going to display it here so you can see what it is. So we're going to go ahead and clear that out. We're going to do something a little bit more logical. We're going to go ahead and just put a heading up here. Go ahead and click, and we will call this Winter Wonderland. I'm going to go ahead and then select the type. To change anything in the type tool, it needs to be selected. Now, in this case, because I want to select everything, I can just hit Command A. But in this case, I'm just going to click, hold, and drag over, and it's going to highlight that. And now I know it's going to be changed. If I want to change the font, I can simply come up here and click on this drop-down box, and you'll see as I drag over this, over here, it actually is changing my font. And we'll just go ahead and just use this for right now. If I want to change my font size, I have two options. I can come over here and pick a font manually. I can type in a size of a font. So if I want this to be 120, I can type in 120. Or my personal favorite, once again, is that scrubber tool. So we're going to go over the type, hold, and drag to the right or to the left. And that's going to resize our type. What's great about this is we can see exactly how big it is on our image. And that looks good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and stop. I'm going to switch on over to the Move tool. The Move tool is going to allow me to actually move or put that type in a different location if I want. It's going to deselect it. Now we can see it's its own layer. So now I can come over here and I can move this type wherever I want. One thing that you'll notice is I move this around, little lines pop up. And if I get this set right here, you're going to see that vertical line right there that runs through my image. That's telling me that at this point, I have this perfectly centered on my image. If I move it over here, that line disappears. If I move it back, that line reappears. And now I know I have that perfectly centered on that image. Now, if I want to change the color of this type, I can come over here to where there's this T. If I double click on that T, it's automatically going to select everything for me. It's a whole lot easier to do it that way. So you just double click on the T. You can't do it out here. It has to be on the T. And then I can come up here to my color and click on my color, and I can go anywhere in here and pick a different color. I can also pick a color from inside my image. So if I wanted to use the color in this mountain, you'll notice that I have this little eyedropper now, and wherever I click, it's going to automatically move and select that color in my image, and then I can just go ahead and hit OK, and it's going to apply and change that color. Once again, if I want to change the color, I can come up here. I can do whatever I want. This slider right here is going to make our text colors more vibrant. So as I drag this up, they're going to get more saturated. So let's say I wanted neon green, which I don't. I can come in here and pick that neon green, or I can come back down here and pick that color. Anything that you'd want to do. But a lot of times picking a color within your image is really going to make it blend quite nicely. So we'll go ahead and say, okay, we like this color and we want to apply it. And then I'll just click on the move tool and it will apply everything to that image. Now, these are your basic options as far as type goes. So we have our font. This is the style, whether it's regular. Some will come in bold and a whole bunch of different stuff, but this is just a simple font. Most likely you're not going to change this. This is our font size. This is how the rasterized type is going to look. This is to justified left, centered, justified right, our color. This is actually going to allow us to put the type on a curve. We're not going to get into that right now. But right here, we have this little teeny panel right here. And if you click on this, it brings up a paragraph or a character properties. And the one that we want is this character right here. So we're going to go ahead and close that. Remember, you can always get into anything up here, which is character. You just want to select that. And this is going to look very similar to up here, but it's going to give us a little bit more information as far as changing our type. So we have our font. So I can click on this and now we can see as that font changes as I highlight over different images. We have our font size. So this is allowing me to change that font size. We'll come in and get into this here in a second. This right here is letting me change the vertical height of the type. So right now it's at 100%. If I make it bigger, it's going to make it a much taller type, or I can make it a much kind of squattier, fatter type. Over here, this is going to make the letters wider or narrower, depending on what side of 100% you go on. We have this capital T. This is going to allow us to bold. This is going to allow us to italic. This is going to allow us to make everything capital letters. So this is going to do all capital letters, but the capital letter is going to be larger. We'll skip these for right here, but if you want to know exactly what you can just click on them. We have an underline, which can be useful, and then a strike through. So those are the main ones that you're going to use here, are either going to be bold, italic, all capitals, but the first letter is going to be larger, underline, and then strike through. We're going to go ahead and add a second line here. Now I'll just write Park City. Now you can see the issue here is that line went right over our upper line. So we're going to go ahead and select all that type right there. And that's where this is going to come into effect. So this little thing right here is going to allow us to change the difference of spacing in between the two type lines. So up here, we have this little symbol. It has two letters and an arrow. And what this is going to allow us to do is change the spacing between the two different lines. So if I take my scrubber and I drag it right and make it greater, you can see it's not really doing much except for putting more space in between the two lines. So I can put a lot of space or a little space. There's no set number that's correct. It's going to depend on the size of the font that you're using, a whole bunch of different information, but it is going to allow you to change that different spacing. Now you have to be careful when you use type. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead. I'm going to select that C. And remember right here, I want to change the vertical height of my type. But if I just select one letter, it is just going to change. Well, it looks like I have two letters selected. It's just going to select or change those two. This can be good or bad depending on what you're trying to do. Any letters that you select, it's going to allow you to change. If you want to select everything, you need to make sure everything is selected. All right, so one last thing we're going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and select city. And we have these two right here. So right here, this is the vertical width of the letter. So it's making the letters themselves wider. But right above it, you have something else. This is making the distance in between the letters greater. So if I do this, you can see it's this spacing in between the letters, which has gotten larger. So this is the actual letter size, and this is the actual spacing between the letters. Those are the basic options of what you have under the character panel to control how your type works inside of Photoshop. We're just going to go ahead and apply that even though it doesn't look good. What's great about type is we can turn it on or off to see if we like it. If it's too bold, meaning like it's too powerful, we can always lower that opacity of the type to sort of blend it into the background. So let's go ahead and turn this type off. I'm going to show you something that's just a little bit different. We're going to come up here to this picture of this image here. I'm going to try to put type on it. So we're going to come up here and we're going to take our type tool and we'll put mountain trees. At least I think I spelled mountain trees. And we'll do a bigger, bolder font just because it's not showing up. And we'll go ahead. And my font's in there, but you can't see it. So why can't we see this font? Well, one, maybe because of the color. So we'll go ahead and switch this. We've got kind of a dark gray. So let's go ahead and change this to bright white. And then you can see, we can see it better now. So let's make it larger. And it's more readable, but it's difficult to read. So why is it difficult to read? Well, because there's too much texture or too much going on inside the background of this image. Now, there are ways to work with this that we can add elements to an image to make type more readable. But one thing that you have to think about when you're adding type to an image is you need to make sure that there's actual space to do it. So in this image, there's this clean, simple space where it's going to allow us to easily put type in. This image doesn't have that. It's got a bright dark texture and a bright background of a sky that is really going to make it difficult for type to be read inside this image. Right here, looks like I've got this spelled wrong. So we're going to mountain trees. So this is difficult to read. So one thing that we can do here is we can go to our background layer and we can create a new layer. We're going to actually grab our selection tool and we're just going to create a little box. And then I'm going to fill that box. And I think I'm going to fill this box with white. So we're going to go ahead. So we've got this white box here. And then I'm just going to lower the opacity. And then we're going to click on this mountain trees. Make sure our move tool has been selected. And I'm going to put this up into that area. And we're going to go ahead and switch that type from white to black. And you can see putting this little box in the background makes it a little bit easier for us to read mountain trees. Is it perfect? No, we can come in here and we can change the opacity. So this is really difficult to read. Now we can always come in here and click on our type and we can get rid of this and make everything bold. And we can reduce that size between the letters and we can make our font a little bit bigger. And you can see as we do that, it makes it easier to read, but still it's very distracting versus over here where we had something that was really simple and easy to read. So one of the key aspects is just because you can put type on something doesn't always mean it's a good image to put type on. Those are the basics of how to apply text inside of Adobe Photoshop. In a later video, I'll go ahead and really kind of get into and show you how to do layer styles and some more advanced functions of type within Photoshop. But this will get you in a good start. It's a good idea to just kind of play around with it and see how everything works. Hopefully that has been helpful. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.